We are continuing from where we left off. Just as a matter of recap, if there's anyone who was not here, we were talking about how to write or how to do your undergraduate research. And we've already talked about the things to consider when you're choosing your topic and the variables that you can do and what to do at introduction. I think we got to, where did we get to? And let me just make this announcement again. I received some requests by some people on a personal basis to provide a good sample of a proposal to them. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to give one to anyone because the proposal is an intellectual property and you want to respect somebody's intellectual property. So I will need permission from some of the students that I have only supervised one group of students since I joined the University of Ghana just last year. So I need permission from the good ones, those who got A's. I need permission from them before I can share their proposals to you, because in case some of them have intentions of building on it to publish a paper for me, because I think quite a number of them can publish. They did quite good work. So if they want to publish, then it will be unethical for me to share with you because it's material that they are working on to publish, you know. So I need to talk to them first before I can share any proposal with you. I'm sorry. I'm sure that once I have a discussion with them, probably some of them will agree for me to share with you. Unless that is done, I'm not able to share the proposals. Okay, thank you. So let's go ahead. And we did all this last week. Start with a clear, nice sentence. We did it. Did we talk about a problem statement? I think we did, right? So
yes, please.
Yeah, we did talk about these things. Did we talk about objectives?
Well,
or we're just about to start from there, right?
We're about starting it, yeah.
All right, so let's just go back then to problem statement. So like I said, your problem statement should not be more than one page. Hey, remember that this is undergraduate research. It is not a PhD research. So don't kill yourself, please. All right, we're already in very tough times. Don't kill yourself. Besides, you'll be doing this research together with your coursework. So the stress on you is going to be quite higher at this level. So don't kill yourself. Just write one page of a problem statement and show exactly what problem you are trying to help solve by doing this research. Where is the gap in the literature that you're trying to fill? Show a gap in the existing literature you're trying to fill. And the literature, when we say existing literature, we are only talking about the research that people have done already in the area that you're researching. So if we should go back to the research topic that we were trying to talk about investigating the stress experiences of fresh university students. Okay, this is a sample problem statement. This is a very brief one. You can't write this for your problem statement. You have to start from somewhere before you end here. But this is a typical ending to a problem statement, where you show that much research has been done, and the research that has been done has revealed this, and that, but this particular one has not been studied. And so you are trying to, and that constitutes a gap in the literature because it hasn't been studied, and you are trying to fill that gap by studying that. Okay, so you can read this in red and see how it has been put. All right, let's talk about objectives. In the past year that I've experienced University of Ghana students, or that I've supervised them, and in my past experience myself as a former University of Ghana student, I realized that we worry ourselves. Some people write 10 objectives, 7 objectives, 8 objectives, because we are under the false impression that the more your objectives, the better your research. No. All right? Don't kill yourself. If you write too many objectives, you end up messing up the whole thing. So for me, I would prefer that you limit your objectives to 3. 3 objectives, okay? What are you trying to do in this research? Or what is this research about? What are the objectives? The objectives are to, 1, find out this, 2, examine that, and 3, examine that. You're done, okay? For example, in this research topic that I put there, 2 objectives is enough, okay? The first objective is to estimate the prevalence of stress among fresh university students. That's the first thing I want to do. The second thing I want to achieve is to determine the nature of the stresses confronting fresh university students. Okay, so how much stress are they facing? And second one, what kind of stress are they going through? These are the two things I want to find out. That's it. That's the research. Okay, limit it to maximum 3. Some people want to go up to 5. It will depend on your supervisor. For some of you, your supervisors may be so interested in your topic that they themselves may want to work with you so that in the future they can publish with you. In that case, your supervisor can say, okay, we need 5 objectives or so. Work with your supervisor. Okay, work with your supervisor. But 3 objectives, in my opinion, is enough for undergraduate work. I don't like to stress students. Okay. Your objective should state clearly what you hope to achieve in your research. That's what an objective is about. So the first question is, what do you want to do? Okay, I want to study or I want to investigate stress experiences of fresh University of Ghana students. Good. 2, what exactly do you want to know about them? 1, I want to know about the extent of the stress. 2, I want to know about the kinds or the nature of the stress. That's all. Okay. All right. And then your theoretical framework. This is where a lot of students often also face some problems, especially conceptualizing the theory. But hey, this is where you need your supervisor the most. So make your supervisor your friend and let them help guide you in choosing which theory is relevant for your work. Your theoretical framework should not be more than 1.5 pages. It should not be more than 1.5 pages. At least for those that will come under my supervision, 1.5 pages is enough. Okay, it's enough. For some supervisors, they will say write 3 pages, 2 pages. It will depend on you and your supervisor's arrangement. But for me, 1.5 pages at an undergraduate level is enough. Choose a theory that says something about your variables. So for example, the research that I am doing is examining stress experiences of fresh university students. Any theory that I choose should be a stress theory. Okay, a theory is a set of statements or is an idea about how something happens. So if I want to research on stress experiences of students, then I need to look for a theory that says something about how stress occurs. That theory helps me to understand or helps me to argue my point that because this theory says that stress occurs in so and so ways, if students are being put in those ways, then I am convinced that they will be stressed. So the theory actually helps you to set up a foundation for the argument you are trying to make, or to help you build the reason why you are saying what you are saying. You are not saying it out of the blue. You are not saying it because that is what you think. You are saying it because that is what a theory says. And the theory must be an established theory that is well known. Do you understand? So for stress experiences, you want to go to perceived stress theory or any other stress theory that you can find on the internet or in the literature. So depending on the variables that you're talking about, I'm talking about stress theory because the topic that I have has stress as the main variable. Okay, so whichever is the main variable in your work, that you need to find a theory that speaks about that variable and use it. Limit yourself to 1 or 2 theories. I've seen undergraduate work where people are having like 4 or 5 theories. Really, it shows that you're confused. Okay, 1 theory is enough for me, but some supervisors will ask you to add more theories, especially if you pick proposals that have already been done or research work, long essays that have already been submitted at the department, and you go through, you see that a lot of them have 5 theories, 3 theories. Jesus Christ. Don't kill yourself. I'll keep repeating that, okay? 1 theory is enough for me, but 2 theories should be the max at an undergraduate level, even if you are working under a difficult supervisor. Okay. So limit yourself to 1 or 2 theories, and in the write-up, you need to show exactly how the theory explains the variable in your work. What variables are you working with? That is why I said it's important for you to write your topic down and identify the main variables and define those variables in your introduction. Once you are able to identify the main variables, it becomes easy for you to then zero in on a theory that speaks specifically about those variables you're talking about, okay? All right, and then from the theoretical framework, you go to your literature review. In my opinion, The literature review at undergraduate level should not be more than 3 pages. It should be between 2-3 pages. Okay? Some supervisors will ask you to write 5 pages, 7 pages, 10 pages. Well, you're bad. Okay, it's your job to do. So you have to work with your supervisor to understand or to know the number of pages you should write. Okay, because for me, the literature review is not so much about the number of pages you're writing. It's about the content of what you're writing. If you write 10 pages of nonsense, it's of no use to me. And when it comes to writing nonsense, I trust psychology students that they can write a lot of nonsense. Jesus Christ, I trust you guys. You can write a lot of nonsense. So it's okay, just write 2 pages. Okay, just write 2 pages. All right, so I've got one. Doctor, please, after last week's presentation, I sent you an email to help me clarify and clear some confusions, but you haven't replied me. Please, I want it to be private. That's why. And I'm also reading it out. Don't worry, Kenneth. Because of what I'm doing with this whole NMSQ thing, it's actually taking a lot of my time. After I'm done with this, I think I'll be a little free to look through it and then give you some guidelines. But hey, don't worry. Your supervisor will help you clarify all these things. It is their job to help you clarify it. If you need my help, don't worry. After I'm done with this NMSQ nonsense, I will have time and then I'll look through and provide some guidelines for you. Okay? All right. So those of you who are smiling when I am saying that you guys can write nonsense, of course you can write nonsense. Of course you can write. You are the nonsense. In fact, if you guys went to NMSQ, it will be a contest of nonsense. I know, right? Okay. So nobody will even dare ask university students to go for a contest because you don't like what you're going to hear. Okay. So the literature review should be about 2 to 3 pages max for me. Some lecturers or supervisors will prefer 5 pages, 10 pages. It depends on you. Okay. I need you, or in your literature review, remember that it is called literature review. It means that you have to review the literature, not report it. Okay. Usually when you read, even at master's and PhD level, when you read some people's literature review section, it sounds like a literature report. In 2018, Johnson & Johnson did a study and they found this. In 2020, Amanda and so did this and they found this. They used 2,000 candidates or 2,000 university students, and after completing the research, they came up with the findings that A, this, B, that, B. That's the literature report. You haven't reviewed the literature. When you're reviewing somebody's work, you're looking at the strengths and weaknesses of what the person did. That's what we call a review. So first, you tell us about what the person did and how the person did it and what they found. And then what is wrong with what they found, or what is right about what they found and what is wrong about what they found. Is there any weakness that you found, okay, in what they did? You need to think, read it and think about it carefully. That's when we say you're reviewing it. So stick to what the researcher researched and what they found. I've read some post literature review and they basically copy and paste people's abstracts in their literature review. Okay, so in one of my students' literature review, what I did find was that we investigated how we investigated the extent of psychological well-being among 3,000 university students. We used so questionnaire. The moment I see we did, I mean, if you are writing in your work that we did, you and who did it, right? It just tells me that you just lifted it from online. You're not telling me that so and so did this study and that's what they found. You are saying we did in your own work. You and who? Okay. So really, that is what you need to watch out for. Okay, you need to read the work and tell us what the people did and what they found. That's a brief one. What they did, what they found. Don't tell us how they selected their sample and the setting, blah blah blah. No. Okay, tell us what they did, what they found, and how that is relevant to your work. So, for example, in the stress experience of fresh university students example that I'm using, if I'm doing a literature review for this, I'm going to look out for studies that have been done about stress among university students. Okay, and I'm going to report that, okay, so and so, according to so and so, stress occurs among fresh university students because blah 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 blah. Do you understand? Then I look at the method that they use, and I'm able to say whether they use a quantitative method, qualitative method. I look at the sample, I read all those kind of things. I don't write those things in the literature review, but I read them, and then I can say that, okay, even though they found that there was more stress among female students than male students, their sample was biased because there were more female students in their sample than male students. You understand? That's a review. It means you're reviewing the work. You're looking at the things they did to try to tell the value of what they did. If you through your literature review, you find out that, for example, a lot of the work that has been done were all quantitative, then you can use that as a critique and then say that it is because of that reason that you are launching this qualitative inquiry into that issue, because the existing evidence all come from quantitative research. You understand? Something like that. I mean, when you meet your supervisor, they will guide you. They will guide you on how to do your literature review. Okay, so at the end of the chapter, you need to show how your work is going to fill the weaknesses that you have identified in the literature that you have reviewed. Okay, all right. The next one is rationale. Rationale. Right after your literature review, the next section that you are going to write will be the rationale, but this is not like a must. So the first point I put here is for you to check with your supervisor whether they want you to include a section on rationale or not. Because for me, if the student at the introduction section has already written a section on relevance of the research or relevance of the study, then for me, it is tautological to ask the student to go ahead and write another rationale. They have already given you the relevance. What do you need rationale for? If you're looking for the rationale, you can find it in the relevance. But some supervisors will insist that you write relevance and then in the introduction, and then when you finish your literature review, you write a section on rationale. I don't believe in that nonsense. So you have to work with check with your supervisor, okay? Because you're just worrying the student. You're making them repeat, and the work becomes boring. So check with your supervisor whether they require you to write a rationale or not, okay? Now, some supervisors are okay with just the relevance of the study. Supervisors like me, okay? So the relevance of the study, if you write a relevance of the study section at the end of the introduction, that's fine with me. You don't need to then go ahead and write in the rationale. If you don't bring the relevance of the study, then at the end of your literature review, you have to write a rationale. So you can choose one or the other. But I would prefer the relevance to the rationale, right? Okay. Now, other supervisors prefer you provide both a section for relevance and then a section for rationale. If you get a supervisor who prefers that, then please do it. If you have to write a rationale, it should not be more than one paragraph. Okay? And it should explain the reasons why you are carrying out your research. That's all. The rationale translates into the reason behind what is the use of this thing that you say you are doing. Okay? You say you want to study stress experiences of fresh university students. Why? Provide a rationale. Do you understand? Okay, so in your rationale, you need to tell us why you are wasting our time doing this kind of research. Okay, it should not be more than one paragraph. Next, after you've written your rationale, if you have to write a rationale, so from literature review, you come to rationale, if you have to write it. From rationale, you go to statement of hypothesis. Now, the statement of hypothesis is strictly for only quantitative research, strictly. If your research is not quantitative, talk to your supervisor about how to proceed and don't write statement of hypothesis. If you're going to do quantitative research, then you will need statement of hypothesis. Usually, if you're writing a qualitative research, the objectives you have stated are enough. You don't need all these hypothesis nonsense. Just the objectives is okay. They're okay. If you have 3 objectives, that's fine. Because the qualitative work directly links your findings to your objectives, not your hypothesis. But quantitative people are always they are always like nerds. They want all these kind of things. And I don't know why. So those doing qualitative work should just stick to objectives or research questions. You don't need any hypothesis. If you are doing quantitative work, try to limit your hypothesis to a maximum of 5. I have seen undergraduate work with 8 hypotheses, 10 hypotheses. Oh, why are you trying to kill yourself for a common degree? Okay, stick to 5. Okay, and make sure you do it well. Because if you test 7, 8, 9, 10 hypotheses and it is nonsense, really, you haven't done anything. So just 5 hypotheses max will be fine. 4 hypotheses cool with me. You know, sometimes even 3 hypotheses okay. It's undergraduate work. The idea behind undergraduate work is to introduce you to how research is done and make sure that you grab the basic concepts. It doesn't have to do with so much quantity. Okay. So try to limit your hypothesis to maximum 5. 3 hypotheses, in my opinion, is enough. But some other quantitative researchers will ask you to do 5 hypotheses. Remember that hypotheses are predictions based on the literature you have reviewed. That is why the hypothesis comes after the literature review. Your hypotheses are supposed to be based on your review of the literature. So they are called intelligent guess. A hypothesis is called an intelligent guess, meaning it is a guess you are making after reviewing the research. So if the research evidence that exists, the literature says ABC, then on the basis of that, you are predicting that this and this is what you will find in the research. So your hypothesis should be based on what you have learned or observed from the existing literature. Your hypothesis needs to be clear and directional. If you don't know what a directional hypothesis means, go back to your psychostats notes and read. So please refer to your psychostats notes to understand directional hypothesis, one-tailed, two-tailed hypothesis, and all those kind of things, okay? I think somebody sent a comment. Maybe it was a grammatical error. Which one was a grammatical error? Well, okay.
I think the person was talking about the we did this, we did that. And
it can never be grammatical error. It is just pure stealing. Okay? It is just pure stealing. It is not, it can't be grammatical error. All right, let's go ahead. So after you've stated your hypothesis, you may now define your you operationalize your hypothesis, define some key terms that you have used. That's one. If you look at any proposal sample, you see how it is done. I will not spend time on that. We don't have much time. Okay. Then your chapter 3 is your methodology. The methodology for me is the easiest part of the work, because the methodology section you will get if it's a good sample. But I will also discuss with you some of the sections that we are expecting to see at your methodology section. So in your methodology chapter, you will have to describe one, the setting, the research setting. The setting refers to the location where the research took place. And you have to justify why you chose that particular location. Okay? So, assuming that you are conducting a research on examining the stress experiences of Fresh University. 40 minutes comes so soon. Really? I've just been given a notification that we have 10 minutes to go. Let's go as fast as we can. So the setting refers to the location. If you are conducting a research on the stress experiences of Fresh University of Ghana students, the setting is going to be University of Ghana. Why are you choosing University of Ghana? You need to have a good justification for that. Okay, the next one is research design. Here, you need to describe which research design, sorry, research has been misspelled, so please correct the spelling for me. Describe which research design you are using and justify why you have chosen that design and how that design fits your work. You need to state whether your work is quantitative or qualitative at this particular section, and then describe which quantitative or qualitative design you are using. So for example, if you have stated that you are using the quantitative research method, then go ahead and describe which quantitative design. It could be cross-sectional survey design, it could be experimental design, it could be case study design, or whatever design that, okay, that you're using. Okay, if it's qualitative, you could be using a phenomenological design, you can be using a grounded theory design. You have to describe, and you have to, most importantly, justify, tell us why you have chosen that design and how that design will help you to achieve your stated objectives. Okay, more comments. Is it only me? I can't see the slides. Oh, you can't see?
Well, I can see from here. So
yeah, somebody is saying, if you have someone's proposal and it's hard copy, how can I get it to you to look at? Oh, you want me to look at it for you, whether it's a good proposal or not? You're going to have to come to my office. So you have my number. You can call me and find out if I'm in the office, and then just dash by the office and show it to me. All right. Let's go ahead. So after your research design, you're going to now have to talk about your population and your sample. At level 400, I'm expecting you to already know what population and sample is about. So I'm not going to spend time on that. If you don't know, go back to your research methods notes, please. Okay? Spoon feeding is not really a good way of teaching. But as for population and sample, there, you should know. All right. Then sampling technique. Describe how you are selecting your sample from the population. There are several techniques available depending on the kind of research you're doing and what the aim of the research is. If you don't know how or any of these techniques for sampling, for picking your sample from the population, just Google. Okay, just Google. It's very easy for you to know. At level 400, we expect you to know some of these things because you've done research methods and you've done experimental psychology, you've done psychostats. So as for sample selection, you know, we have randomized, simple random sampling, we have stratified random sampling, we have convenience sampling, we have purposive sampling, a lot of them. The one that you choose depends on what you want to achieve with the research. Okay, right. And then after your sampling, you talk about your data collection tools or instruments. If you're doing a quantitative work, you need to describe what instruments you are using to collect data and why you have chosen those instruments. Okay? So for example, for a research on the stress experience of fresh undergraduate students, because my first objective is to measure the prevalence of stress, I may perhaps use the perceived stress scale, which is a standardized instrument for measuring how much stress a person thinks they are experiencing. Okay, right. So if they are standardized questionnaires, in order to use a standardized questionnaire, you also need to provide information on who developed the questionnaire, when the questionnaire was developed, and then what the questionnaire is used to measure, and then the reliability statistics of that questionnaire. Okay, once you find a questionnaire, you can check Google or any good resource site and be able to know the reliability statistics, the Cronbach's alpha, and all those kind of things about the questionnaire you need to provide. And also, you need to provide at least samples of the items you can find on the questionnaire. The samples of the items on the questionnaire are the statements on the questionnaire. Provide maybe 2 of them or 3 of them. Okay, that should be fine. And then after describing your instruments, you need to go to your procedure. In fact, if you're going to do a qualitative work, you don't need you don't need all these standardized questionnaires. You just have to work with your supervisor, look at the objectives that you have, and then design your own interview guide. The interview guide is just a list, is just a document that contains a list of questions that you are going to ask during your interviews. Okay, and it is always better to decide those questions from the objectives that you've stated. If you're going to examine, or if your first objective is to examine or determine the prevalence or the extent of stress in the students, you might as well just ask them, how stressed would you describe yourself? How stressed, or how stressed would you say you are at this moment in time? the students will say, oh, I am very stressed. Or if you can say, okay, so on a scale of 0 to 10, how stressed would you say you are? Then the student will say, I would say 7. That tells you that the stress is high, you know. So you have to write down the questions on your interview guide without having to go and look for standardized questionnaire and putting yourself through all that. Okay, and then ethical consideration. The procedure, sorry. At the procedure here, you have to describe in a step-by-step way how you will proceed to collect your data. Now you have told us that this is the research you want to do. This is the method that you're using. These are the instruments you are going to use to collect the data. Tell us how you are going to proceed with the data collection. So in a quantitative way, if you're using a survey technique where you're going to share questionnaire, you will have to tell us the step-by-step way how you're going to share the questionnaire. So maybe first, I'm going to go to the institutional authorities and look for permission from the institutional authorities. I will present them an introductory letter from the department, which bears testimony that I am a student of the University of Ghana. I will explain to them the purpose of my research, and I'll ask their permission to share my questionnaire to their staff. And then if they give the permission, I will then go and meet the staff, explain to them, make them sign informed consent, and then I'll give the questionnaire to them. And then I will maybe designate a point at the reception where anybody who completes the questionnaire can come and deposit the questionnaire. And then after 2 weeks, I will come and pick up all the questionnaires. That's procedure. So here at the procedure, you have to tell us step by step how you're going to proceed to collect your data. And then after you've told us that, you have to now go to ethical consideration. Here, you have to state whether you obtain ethical clearance for your work. Of course, you can never proceed on any research if you have not obtained ethical clearance from a designated institution or authority, right? So here at the Department of Psychology, your supervisor will advise you on how to obtain ethical clearance and will help you to obtain it. Once you obtain the ethical clearance, so you need to state whether you obtain ethical clearance and where, from whom you obtain that ethical clearance. And then describe what measures you are putting in place in the research to ensure compliance to the laid down ethical guidelines for conducting psychological research. Okay, so it includes drafting an informed consent document and making sure people are informed, making sure that you get consent. You have to describe to us how you are going to make sure that you will achieve all these things. So Kabute, I think now we have about 1 minute left. So you may have to relaunch it again. We are almost done. So once we relaunch it, we'll be done with it. Okay. After ethical consideration, the next thing you talk about is your data analysis. Here, at this section, you describe which data analysis techniques you are using to analyze the data you have collected. And your data analysis techniques will be based on, if you're doing a quantitative work, it will be based on the hypothesis that you've stated. So for example, if you're measuring gender differences in stress experience between, or differences in stress experience between males and females, for that particular hypothesis, you may have to use an independent t-test. Okay? Or if you're conducting an evaluation study where you are talking about you're measuring stress before and after an intervention. So for example, we are saying that we want to know the effectiveness of this technique in managing stress. If that is the research, that you're doing, then it is a pre-test, post-test technique that you're going to use. So if you want to find out the effectiveness of, let's say, breathing exercises in stress reduction, then what you're going to have to do is that at first you're going to have to measure all your sample on the amount of stress they are facing. So you give them a stress questionnaire, and then they answer the questionnaire. You collect them. All right. So, like I was saying, for your data analysis, if you did you measured stress experiences between males and females, then you may use an independent t-test for that hypothesis. But if you are, let's say, trying to test the effectiveness of a relaxation technique on stress relief, so then you administer a questionnaire before the relaxation technique, and then they take the questionnaire, you have their scores. Then you take them through the relaxation technique. And then after you've taken them through the relaxation technique, you then ask them to take the questionnaire again. And then you get another set of scores. So you see that you have 2 sets of scores for each candidate. So if you want to analyze the data to see what was the level of stress before the relaxation exercise, and what is the level of stress after the visualization exercise, then you have to use a correlated t-test. Okay, so you have to decide which analysis technique you are going to use to analyze the data based on the nature of the hypothesis you are testing. Okay, and you have to describe in your research report which analysis technique or analytic technique you use and why you use that technique. Okay. So this is where your proposal ends. We'll go ahead to talk about the difference between the proposal and then the long essay itself. So let's not waste time here. Let's go ahead. Okay. So after you have done your data analysis, your next main chapter is your results or your findings. This is the chapter where you present the results you obtain from your data analysis. When you run your independent t-test or your correlated t-test, what was the result? This is where you tell us that result. If you did a quantitative work, you will have to restate each hypothesis and show the SPSS output for that hypothesis. Then after showing the SPSS output for that hypothesis, under the SPSS output table, you explain what the figures in the table mean and tell us whether the hypothesis was supported or rejected. So assuming that I try to compare males and females on their level of stress. Okay. After I collect the data, I use independent t-tests to analyze the data in the SPSS. Then when I come to the results section, I state that hypothesis 1 predicted that males or females will be more stressed than males. The analysis showed, or in order to test this hypothesis, the independent t-test analytic technique was used. The results of the independent t-test shows a higher mean score for females than males. This means that females were more stressed or highly stressed as compared to males. Hypothesis 1 was therefore supported. Because hypothesis, you understand? So that is how you go about it. And again, at this particular level, your supervisor will be very involved and they will help you and show you how to report your findings. Okay. So basically, you need to tell us per hypothesis, each hypothesis. You state the hypothesis, you explain the analytic technique that was used to test that hypothesis, then you state the outcome by showing the table. You show the table, and then you say, as shown in the table, the mean score or the p-value or whatever, all that kind of statistics things that you say, you have to write all of them. Okay? If you did a qualitative work, depending on your supervisor's guidance, you may present your thematic analysis table or just the themes that emerge from the data and then explain those themes. So yes, please. So if you do the quantitative work, you will not need any all these independent statistical tools or whatever, because it is not quantitative. You rather probably would have to do thematic analysis, where you will have to, the interview that you conducted, maybe if you recorded the interview, you'll have to now transcribe the interview. Okay, write what the candidates said, and then go through thematic, identify codes and themes from the text that you've written down, and then present those themes as the findings. Okay, your supervisor again will guide you in this process. Now, after you've written your findings, your chapter 5 is your discussion. The discussion chapter is the most interesting part, because that is where a lot of people are interested in. You did this research. These were the results that you got, or the findings that you made. So what? That so what is what the discussion talked about. You found that females are more stressed than males. So what? The so what comes at the discussion. You need to begin this chapter by restating the aim or the main objectives of the study. and the method that was used to conduct the study. So for my research, which was to examine the stress experience of fresh university students, the discussion will go something like this. This study was conducted to examine or to investigate stress experiences of fresh university students at university level. In order to achieve all, the main objectives were first to find out the extent of stress that fresh university students face and the kinds of stress that they face. In order to achieve these objectives, a quantitative methodological approach was used. The findings revealed that, you see so you start the discussion by first restating the main aim or objectives of the research, the method that was used, and then you begin by picking the findings one by one and discussing what they mean. At the end of or after statistically analyzing the data that was collected, it was found that females face more elevated levels of stress than males. This implies that, you go ahead to tell us about the implication. If females are more stressed than males, what's the implication? What should the university do? What can we do about it? What does it mean? Okay. So for example, one of the implications is that the findings suggest probably that females' academic performances may be lower than males. Why? Because existing evidence in the literature shows that stress can affect or can negatively affect academic performance. Then you give the evidence. Where is the existing literature? Right? So first, you state the finding, you state the implication, and then, oh shit, you can compare. Oh, sorry, this video is going on YouTube and I'm saying all these things. Okay. Compare the finding to what other earlier researchers have found, right? So if you found that males were more stressed than females, so you need to compare what you found to what other people have found and show whether there are differences in what you found between what you found and what other people found, or whether what you found actually confirms or supports or is consistent with what other researchers found. If it is consistent, what is the implication? If it is not consistent, what is the implication? You have to tell us that in your discussion, okay? You come to your conclusion, also part of your chapter 5, conclusion and recommendation. Restate the main aim of the research, again, and show whether you have actually achieved the objectives that you stated at the beginning of the research. So at the beginning of the research, you stated that you wanted to find out the extent of stress that fresh students face at university level. What was the extent of stress? Did you find it? So your conclusion will tell us whether to achieve. And then you provide some recommendations for stakeholders based on the findings that you made. It was found that females were highly stressed as compared to males. So what are you recommending? You're recommending that gender-specific interventions be designed and implemented to provide more support for female students in order to help them overcome or deal with the stresses that are facing them. And your second objective was to find out the kinds of stress that the students face. And maybe your research shows that the students' main stressor is navigational in nature, where navigational stress refers to difficulty in locating the various institutions or the various parts of the university. So, or for example, lecture halls, examination halls. If you did find that some students are complaining that they were not able to locate or they performed poor in one examination or the other because they had difficulty in locating the exam hall, which a lot of students on this university campus, especially 100 students, they face. Okay, they come to the lecture hall 40 minutes late. Why? Because they couldn't find or they couldn't locate the exam hall. They don't know where Oracle Lawe Tete building is. They don't know where that is. And they spent almost 40 minutes locating the place. By the time they got there, they were already 40 minutes late into the paper. And so the invigilator, who was maybe quite considerate, allowed them in, and they had only 1 hour left to write. And so they got a C, right? If these are some of the findings you're getting, you find that they will have maybe navigational stress, they have academic stress, there's financial stress, there's accommodation stress, and of course there's accommodation stress every year on this university campus, right? So these are the types of stresses that they face. So what are you recommending? For navigational stress, what are your recommendations? Probably you can say that based on the findings you obtained, you're recommending that the university puts directional notices, advantage points on the university in order to help direct students to the appropriate locations. Or you are recommending that location information should be communicated to students earlier so that students have time to look for those locations before the exam date is due. This is a recommendation you're making. You're making this recommendation because you found that the students are facing navigational stress when they come to the university campus. All right, so recommendations should be based on the research that you are, the findings that you have made. All right, then you go to your references. I will not talk too much about references because after going through 4 years or 3 years of university education, you should know how to reference a material. And you should know that not citing or not providing the source or the citation for a material that you've read is plagiarism. That is criminal. Don't do it, okay? All right, so use the APA style. That's what we use at this department. And check Google on how to write references. If you go on Google, you will find, you're going to read a lot of different kinds of material when you're doing your literature review. So you're going to read journal articles, books, internet sources, whatever. There is a way of citing each one of these things. If you go to Google, you will find a lot of easy guides on what to write when you are referencing, for example, a journal article, and when you're referencing a book or maybe an online source. Okay, use that. Try to fish out some of the information for yourself because discovery learning is more impactful than spoon-feeding. Okay, so if I should show you here what to write, I'm spoon-feeding you. But if you go and search it for yourself, it sticks better. Okay, then let's talk about the differences between the proposal and the main research report. You need to know that the research proposal is different from the research report. The proposal basically talks about what you want to do and how you are going to do it. You understand? That's why we say you are proposing to do. You haven't done it yet. You are proposing that this is what I want to do. And this is how I intend to do it. Okay? So the tensing should be future tense, especially at the following sections of your proposal. 1, purpose and relevance of the study. You need to say that the study, if conducted, will be relevant for this because it hasn't been conducted yet. Okay? So if at your relevance or purpose of the study section, I find that, oh, this study is relevant because it helps nurses to understand, or it helps students to understand, then I know that you are copying from somewhere. You haven't done it yet. How is it helping? You understand? So mind your language when you are writing the proposal. It has to be future tense. Okay? When you are stating your objectives and hypothesis. So for example, at the hypothesis section of the proposal, you are writing that females are more likely to be stressed than males. It means you are predicting. It hasn't happened yet. You don't know yet. Okay? Right. And then your methodology, especially at your methodology section, you need to be very, very careful and make sure that you use future tense, because the methodology section of a proposal only tells how you are going to go about it. Which location will you use? Which people or what participants are you considering using? Okay, which method are you going to use? So the entire proposal ends at the methodology section. You can't write a result section because you haven't done it yet, so you don't have the results. So your proposal should end at your methodology section, where you are telling how you're going to do things. And the term will be is expected to be used a lot in the proposal because it is future. This is what you are going to use. I will use this, I will do that, okay? Or this will be used, that will be used. All right, let me look at somebody's comment. Are implications different from recommendations? Yes, the implications are different from recommendations, okay? Recommendations are what you are recommending or how or what you think can be done about what you have reviewed. The implications are the meaning of what you have reviewed or what you have found. I have found that females or males are more stressed than females. What are the implications? The implications are that male performances could be lower than females because they are more stressed than the females. So what are you recommending? I'm recommending that specific interventions that are aimed at helping the males to overcome the stresses be designed and implemented. So the three are different. The finding, the implication, the recommendation, they are different. Okay? All right. So please, like I said, the term will be, or the phrase will be, is expected to be used a lot in this proposal. All right. Now let's talk about the research report. The research report will be written in the second semester, so it's not this coming semester. Okay? It's not this coming semester. Okay? Now, the report is written after the research has been completed. So just let's do a little bit of what do you know? If the proposal is supposed to be written in a future tense, Accra Academy, what tense should be used for the research report? Yes.
Past tense.
Past tense. Correct for 3 points. Okay. All right. So the research report in itself in the past tense. The report talks about what you did. Remember that the proposal talks about what you intend to do. The report talks about what you did, how you did it, what you found, and the implications of what you found. So this report should be in past tense. Okay? Now, there's an easy way of, after writing a proposal and getting it approved, it is almost 50% of the report done. So your second semester work is almost 50% done. Do you understand? Because all the sections of the proposal will come in the report. So basically, your introduction, your relevance, your objectives, your literature review, theoretical framework, methodology, they have all been written already in the proposal. Okay? What you now have to do in second semester is to turn your proposal into a report after you have collected the data and analyzed it. In order to do this, you have to carefully revise the proposal from future tense to past tense. Right? So for example, whilst in the proposal, at your methodology section, at location, for example, research setting, under that section, you are writing that the research will be carried out on the main campus of the University of Ghana. Now, the main campus of the University of Ghana has been chosen because it is where the majority of University of Ghana fresh students report to, and that is the location where access can be gotten to a lot of them. That's the proposal. When you are revising this into the research report, you will see that the research was conducted on the University of Ghana campus. So you see the difference. In the proposal, you said the research will be conducted on the University of Ghana campus. In the report, you are saying that the research was conducted because you've already conducted the research, right? And this location was chosen because, right, then you go ahead. Okay. Then after, so after you've revised your proposal, your entire proposal into past tense, you go ahead and add the results, your data analysis, the results, the findings, the discussion, the conclusions. You add it, and then your long essay is complete for submission. Okay? So the proposal is first semester. Yes, somebody is asking. The proposal is this semester, this coming semester. You are going to work on a proposal, and that proposal is 1 credit hour. It will be graded. Then when you go to second semester, you produce the research report, which is 6 credit hours, and it is graded. Okay? If you get a bad grade in your research report, if you get a D, it can significantly bring down your GPA because it is 6 credit hours. So you want to pay attention and do a good job. Okay? All right. Right. So I think we have come to the end of our presentation, our seminar for research, conducting undergraduate research. I want to thank you very much for making time to be here.